Hi, everybody. I'm Darlene Prides, and I'm a member of the editorial committee of the AFCU Journal. And I'm here with Asher Marron, who is a published author. Hi, Asher.
Hey, Darlene.
Welcome. Thanks for doing this interview with me.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, Asher, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your Franciscan background, first of all?
Yeah, so I'm an alum of the Franciscan School of Theology. I graduated with my MTS in 2014. I studied with you quite a lot when I was there and did my thesis on Hildegard of Bingen and sort of her spirituality and medical thought as well. And I have brought that forward through Catholic high school teaching and now doctoral work.
Doctoral work in what?
I am getting my doctorate in English with a concentration in poetry at the University of Cincinnati and just finished my first year.
Great. Well, congratulations on that. That's a big achievement. You are a published author in both academic prose and in poetry, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. Can you maybe talk us through what the difference is between academic publishing and poetic publishing?
Yes, with academic publishing, I think you're really, as you submit to a journal, you're joining a discourse community that has certain standards and expectations for how an article might be written. And those might often include citing scholars who have come before, what they have said, what has been said sort of on the topic in the past. With poetry, you're submitting into a community that is wanting to hear something they have never heard before.
Mm.
They're wanting to know about that poet's particular experience. So, one of the best pieces of advice that I received around editing that really changed things for me was an editor said that when he is sorting through poetry, right, poetry editors just get stacks and stacks and stacks, um, that he's looking for a poem that only that poet could write.
Mm.
Um, and that it took a lot of pressure, I think, that I felt of that I should be writing about this, I should, because I want to be a part of this community, or this is expected that I would write about this. um, but in fact it's much more authentic than that. And it's a beautiful thing about publishing poetry, and also it's very vulnerable and challenging in lots of ways. But
Yeah, that breaks this open in ways that I haven't thought about before because I've considered academic publishing, which is the only kind of publishing I've done, as entering into a conversation with other people.
mhm.
And so it's relational in that way. And I sense that there's an authenticity for me because I'm interested in the subjects that I'm researching, and I'm interested in having conversations with people, even if they published 20, 25 years ago, entering into the stream. But that unique voice of a poet,
Mhm.
and that place of vulnerability,
Mhm.
placing your soul out there, your heart and soul, for others to read and indeed scrutinize. So let me ask you, how do you receive feedback? Is that challenging or?
I I mean, it always is, right? It's always a little tender, no matter how experienced one might be. Um, the best feedback, and I find the most sort of professional, helpful, I suppose, feedback I receive now is more along observational lines of thinking about, okay, what is this poem doing? What is this poem saying? How is this poet using punctuation, even small minutia things like that, which as poets we are obsessed with these little tiny details. um, so rather than you know judgment calls, it's more, what do I see, what's happening on the page. And that has been most helpful to me, because sometimes a poem might not be functioning in a way you want it to be. It's relating a message that is sometimes either maybe slightly aligned with what you wanted to say or just far left field. And that happened to me this past semester, that it was wrote a poem that was perceived very differently than how I had intended. So feedback, very crucial. And I do find I receive less editing tips when I publish poetry than I have with academic publishing. I have received a few in terms of poetry, but not as many as I received with publishing my article in Hildegard.
Yeah, that's in some ways not surprising. We academics do like to make comments, don't we?
Yeah.
So, do you have any advice or suggestions on how to find the right journal for a poem?
Yes. Finding the right, when you're thinking about finding a journal, it's thinking about finding a home for your poem. And finding the right home for your piece should be, you should really be thinking of what is the mission and the goal of that particular journal. So looking through their website, if they have print issues, taking a look at those and seeing what kind of poetry do they like to publish? Do they have a pattern in terms of kind of broad topics? Are they like very experimental and they just love seeing things all over the page? Or are we seeing things sort of more succinct, stanza, short lines? It's really critical because editors receive so many submissions. And when you think about poetry versus academic publishing, with a journal, with an article, you're submitting maybe 20 pages, right? And then a poem is 2 pages. And of course, a lot of work goes into that. But it's easier to submit that a lot of different times over. So they're getting a lot of submissions. So it's important that when they start to read your poem, they can think, yeah, this fits with what this journal is wanting to do, the audience that this journal is trying to reach. So doing a little bit of legwork before submitting is important.
Yeah, that's really helpful too. Gosh, you have a lot of really good advice. Is there anything else you'd like to share or want to share with people watching this?
What I'll say, coming from the Franciscan School of Theology and the kind of training that I received there, was so beautifully balanced between scholarship and spirituality for me that it set me up in a really interesting way, that I was able to take my my career in terms of teaching, but now sort of living into my fullness as an artist. And I think the fluidity, and that is so gorgeous about Franciscan spirituality. It influences my work now, and I'm not thinking in such binary ways or with such strict lines, but allowing my various identities to just really seamlessly interconnect with my Franciscan spirituality. And that for me, and it is very helpful in the publishing process too, because it's not as if I'm submitting to say, please, please, please take this poem. It's me saying, this is important to me. I want to find the right home for this. And is this journal the right place? So it's a different place to come from.
Oh, wow, that is really helpful. Thank you, Asher. I mean, I hear your voice and your authenticity in that, and feel inspired to possibly publish a poem.
Amazing. I would love
Done
to read
that
the
before,
poem.
right? But you're right in terms of the fluidity of Franciscan spirituality, and it really invites us into expressing ourselves in wholeness,
Yes.
rather than these segmented parts of our lives. So thank you for that. Thanks for talking, Asher. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to connect with you, darling.
Take care.